Hi, this is Don Graves, president of the Heckham Institute, where retirement income meets reverse mortgages. Today I'm here with my guest, Curtis Cloke. Curtis is a retirement income expert and a deferred income annuity specialist. He's one of my good friends, a brother, a fella I love to eat Iowa cut pork chops with, and he's going to spend just a little time talking to us about the role of the home equity conversion mortgage and retirement income planning, particularly the flooring concept. Curtis, thanks for being here.
Hey, Don, it's great to see you.
Yes, sir. Curtis, how did you first become not just aware, but first become excited about the role that housing wealth could play in retirement income planning?
Well, you know, Don, I was actually sent an email by David Littell here at the college. I think it was first part of this year, as a matter of fact. And as a result of that, I reached out to you, and David said, you know, you need to understand this reverse mortgage line of credit that we've got built into the RECP. And Don Graves is the guy that has also put some curriculum in that in that content, like you have for the floor. And it'd be great if you guys could connect. So I gave you a call. We chatted, and without really understanding, because I was one of those guys that shunned the conversation. I mean, completely. It wouldn't even open my ears to the conversation as an advisor of reverse mortgages, given the old reputation of things. Mm-hmm. And I realized when I invited you to come to Thrive University and present for an hour time frame in our Chicago event, I think that was in March. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Didn't take very long as you began to disseminate that information to the group that we had there in Chicago, that I really didn't know what I didn't know. Mm. And so I was shocked that Heckham had evolved to what it had become when I wasn't even allowing myself to even know or understand the information. So that's how I became acquainted with it.
So in Chicago, you began to hear some things, in particular, and I've been to now 4 or 5 Thrive universities, and so I'm excited and thrilled to learn about what you do, which is how to get predictable income for life, guaranteed. And that's just a fascinating concept. Robert Merton at MIT at the Harvard Business Review talked about it's not just the asset, it's the income that's predictable and stable, and I just appreciate what you do. What was it that you heard, or give an example of something you heard or have come to grow into that says, Don, the housing wealth strategy can work here? What's one example?
Well, the piece that I didn't know or understand was that the fact that the HECM line of credit, once you build it's because I understand HELOC lines of credit, you know, mm-hmm. home equity lines of credit, and I personally have been using that as an emotional hedge of emergency dollars against the wealth of my home for a lot of years without mm-hmm. a single balance against the account. But I've used it, you know, various times for various things and paid it right back. So the concept of that, using housing wealth, wasn't so foreign to me. But what I didn't understand was that when you bought when you secure a HECM line of credit, mm-hmm. that you actually get that roll-up factor, that if you don't use it mm-hmm. and you want to exercise it at another time, that you can turn that on, and I'm going to use 5% because it's an easy math to use. Let's assume that roll-up turns out being 5% based on what the factors are.
So let's just for the listener, let's say a client has a $400,000 home and they're age 65. A reverse mortgage will make available to them today around 50% of that.
$200,000.
So $200,000 in a line of credit. That line of credit has a built-in guaranteed growth factor. Today it's around 5%. So it's going to grow each year at about $10,000 or so, give or take.
Every 14 and a half years, if you do the Rule 72, you're going to be doubling that number. So in 14 and a half years approximately, I'm going to have $300,000 a line of credit if I've not used or put a balance against that amount. Mm-hmm. And to me, knowing what we went through in 2008 and watching what happened in 3 distinct areas of the country, like California, Southern Cal especially, mm-hmm. Places like Phoenix, Arizona, and down in tip of Florida, mm-hmm. Just look what happened to annihilation of housing wealth for people that bought those homes in Vegas. I mean, I remember flying into Vegas, and I was reading an article in the paper as I was flying in and landing that 50% of all the homes in Vegas was being foreclosed on. Mm. And I was looking at those massive rows of houses in Vegas thinking, how the cow can this be? So what I realized when I saw that, the big vector change for me was, oh my goodness, that's a way for me to hedge against housing catapult in terms of market collapse like we had in 2008 again, where I have the ability to preserve housing wealth regardless of the value of my actual value of my home in a way that I have permission to utilize a block of my assets that may be allowing me to use it at a value above what it's worth. And if that's true, would I rather use that, if that's true, and not use the assets that are worth $1 for $1 that are growing? And that was a big change in terms of understanding and the knowledge for me that I could first of all protect that kind of catapult.
And I heard you incorporated today, you had a live video cast with the Society of Financial Service Professionals and the American College. And one of your 6 points that you presented, the last point, was the HECM-infused strategy. Why is that important to you now going forward? And particularly, why would you say elite advisors would want to at least have more than a cursory knowledge of how this works?
Well, we've been using life insurance cash values as an asset class as an option to creating cash flow prior to retirement and after retirement for years and years. I've been in this business for 28 years. But you know, the reality is that not so many people have actually purchased those policies to accrue that cash. They're retiring today, like I did and so many might have. And some aren't insurable at all. And what it dawned on me is I understood HECM and got my head fully around what Harold Uvinsky and other experts out there were saying about it, who had changed their mind about this topic, was that for those people who had housing wealth but couldn't have or purchase life insurance cash values, or didn't, and now it's too late because they need the cash now, that housing wealth concept would give me the opportunity to be able to have liquidity without tapping my own investable assets and be able to utilize it in the bad years if markets aren't performing well, or when I had a capital call that was temporary, and then I could turn around in the good times and pay it back.
So you're saying that cash value in life insurance as an asset class could be used for certain things, but only a certain percentage of people would have access to that, either because they got it early enough or whatever. So if that's 20% or 30%, but when housing wealth, we're looking at 87% of retirees have access to housing
It's
wealth.
a much broader net of people that can be benefited by this.
What would you say to advisors who have been reluctant to look at this strategy? You know, we've developed a certification course for advisors. Why would you encourage them to really take the time to learn some more about the home equity conversion mortgage?
Well, I think that with the Department of Labor issue pending out there, and we don't know yet what that's going to say, but there's a high bar being established for us who put ourselves out as these financial experts, these financial professionals, these financial advisors. And there's going to come a day when we don't have the luxury of deciding what we listen to or what we consider and what we don't consider. And I would say that now the onus is on us to know all the things that we come across that force us to ask the question, is this relevant to what I'm doing, or is there reasons why it's not relevant? And in my case, I was just refusing to listen because of an old bias I had, old belief. And I realized today that I'm going to have to be much more nimble in accepting information and then doing the due diligence on that information to decide where and if it fits and for who. But then once I do, realize that there are a lot of things I don't know, and it's being relied on me as a fiduciary or as the professional I put myself out to be, to say I'm really considering all facets of these tools, HECM being one of them. And there's a lot of uses for HECM. Obviously, we don't have time to talk about today, but that's one is doing. I like doing it I like using it for the Social Security bridge. You know, from day to retirement until I delay to 70, if that's the year I'm delaying to. But I like also using it beyond age 70 when the market's down and I have housing wealth. There's just a number of ways that having the flexibility of my home wealth at my disposal that I can use and then pay back is very, very beneficial. The other thing is it's tax-free in terms of there's no impact to tax as I do it. And the cost of this thing, if I'm just doing it as a line of credit and maybe I sit there with the option of letting it roll up, the cost is no different than any other mortgage I'm going to get. That was kind of an aha to me too.
So you've taken the time, you've learned, you're implementing it. I appreciate and being a friend and having a role in that. And I really appreciate the American College, who's really, as you know, taken the leadership in this whole housing wealth discussion. I remember when I was a kid, and the Orange Growers Association of America had that commercial that said, "Orange juice is just not for breakfast anymore." And that was revolutionary. And I drink orange juice all times of day. And that's what the reverse mortgage has become, now approaching its 28th year. It's not just for the poor, destitute widow. It has now come to the mass affluent, to those who have assets under management but may have a concern. Will they last, or will I have the lifestyle to last with it? So Curtis, thank you. And for you all joining us today, Curtis Cloke has been my guest, retirement income expert. This has been Don Graves, president of the Heckham Institute, where reverse mortgages meet retirement income planning. Talk to you real soon. Bye now.